So remember one thing, guys. For sending the request from ServiceNow, we will use REST message. For receiving the request in the ServiceNow, we will use outbound. Inbound integration. For sending, we will use outbound. For receiving, we will use inbound. Okay. So for outbound, we will always use REST message. For inbound, we can use table API. So when you use table API, that is actually direct web services. So it should actually it will actually directly create a record on target tables. Okay. So when we come to the import set API, so in the import set API, we will have control over the request, and it is not a direct web services. It will create a record on the staging table. Through the staging table, it will actually create a record on the target table after running the transformer. Then there is a disadvantage with the import set API. That is actually you will not have control over the response. So you will get response only the number and sysID. So you will get display name and you will get the correlation ID. So if you have to have the control over the response as well, you have to go for scripted REST API. So in our last session, we had actually discussed about scripted REST API. So in the scripted REST API, you will have control over the request. You will have control over the response. Whatever the request that you want to receive, you can receive that request. Whatever the response that you want to send, that response, you can actually send it using scripted REST API. Okay. Hope this is clear for everyone. So now, guys, whatever we have seen. So let us say in my instance, if I create an incident record, that record is actually getting created in the external system. That is fine. The external system can be whatever. It can be Jira, it can be HPSM, it can be Salesforce, whatever. Whenever I create a record here, that is actually getting created in the external system, which is fine. Whenever I update the record, that is actually updating there. Whenever I delete the record, that is deleting the record there. So which is fine. But when I create a record here, that should create there. That is working fine. When I update the record there in the external system, that record has to be updated in the system. When they create the record, that has to be created here in my system. Okay. So whatever the record that is created from the external system, right? If I update that record should be updated in the external system. That is actually called bidirectional integration. So in today's session, we are going to discuss about bidirectional integration, two-way communication. So far we have discussed is actually about one-way communication. So whatever we are going to discuss is actually about two-way communication. Two-way communication is nothing but bidirectional integration. Okay. So now let me just go to the incident table. So I'm selecting the caller here. Okay. I'm just creating an incident record. The incident record has, it should create an incident record in the external system. That incident number should be populated here. Okay. So here it has created a record on the external system. That is actually this number. Okay. Which is fine. Which is good. Till here, if I open the incident table here, so this is the record that is actually created from my system. So when I create a record in my system, it has created a record in this system with this number. Okay. So when I update this here as tester2, it should update the external system as well. Okay. So here it is actually updating, which is fine. So now if I update here as test3 here, it should update this record here. It is not getting updated. Okay. Understand? So for that, what we have to do is, as we have external system number here, similar way, external system also should have our number. Okay. Gopi. External system also should have our number. For that, what I do here in the external system, I'll have to create a new field here. I'll have to create a new field here. Okay. I'm creating a new field. That is also called correlation ID. Somewhere around here, I'm keeping here correlation ID field. Okay. So now what I do, correlation ID field already exists. So then we don't have to create a new one. We'll just remove this one. I think we have an existing one. We'll just pull this out and we'll place it somewhere here. Okay. Correlation ID field. Let me just make it as read only. Okay. So I'll have to modify the scripter REST API now. I'll have to modify the scripter REST API. So before modifying, right, what I do is that I'll actually modify the business rule. Just a moment, guys. Okay. So what I do, I'll just modify the business rule. Business rule is the one which is triggering the REST message, right? I think this is the one. This is the business rule that is actually triggering. So I am just opening this one. So along with these parameters, I am actually passing the incident record SysID. What is the record that is created, right? That particular incident record SysID, I am actually passing it to the external system. Okay. So you guys are getting what I'm trying to tell you here. Why is it taking too much time? Okay. So along with these values, caller, short description, contact type, state fields, I am passing whatever the record is created in my system, right? That particular record system ID, I am passing it to the external system. So what I do here, rest dot set string parameter. Okay. So here I'm actually keeping ID. So here I'm actually passing current record SysID using current dot SysID. Okay, current record SysID I'm passing here in the REST message. So here I have to go to the REST message. So now here I'm going to the REST message. So in the REST message, is this the one? Yeah, this is the one. So in this, we have HTTP method called create, right? Here we'll have to adjust the content. Okay. So this content comma separated. Okay. Dollar. Okay. We are not done yet. So now we'll have to go to this external system. So we have to open the scripter REST API. So in the scripter REST API, which is the one, let me just pull the updated time. Okay. This is the resource that you have to modify. Here we are actually getting extra body. That is actually this incident ID. Okay. So now what we will do here, where inc ID is equal to request dot body dot data dot. Okay. So you can use dot to string as well. You don't have to use it. If you want to convert everything in the string format, you have to use toString function. Okay. So here we have created an incident field, right? A correlation ID. We have actually added a field, correlation ID field on the form, right? Okay. Is equal to okay. So we have to understand this correlation ID spelling is correct or not. The spelling mistakes take a lot of time. Okay. So we are not keeping this correlation ID in the staging table. If you have to create it in the, if you have to keep it in the staging table, what you can do in the staging table, you can create a new field. So in that field, you can actually add that. So now what I do, I'll go to the staging table as well. So what I can do, I can create a new field here. Gr dot is equal to what we can do? We can pass this incident ID. Okay. So now first what we are doing here, along with the incident details, we are passing the incident record SysID as well to the external system, so that external system will have our number, we will have external system number. Both will have unique numbers, right? That is what we are actually doing here. So now what I am doing here is, I am just creating a new incident record here. Okay, as soon as I create a record here, so it will create a record in the external system that will actually give you this the correlation ID and correlation display. Why is it not giving? Hmm. Somewhere it is actually breaking. That is the reason. So what is it telling? The payload is not a valid JSON. So it is giving an error saying like, so here somewhere in the REST message we have to modify. I think we did not save this one, I believe. See, even commas, full stop, colon, semicolon, each one matters. Even if you keep extra comma as well, it will not take. So that is the problem with JavaScript. The disadvantages with JavaScript is that it is case sensitive. It will not accept everything. Unless is Java case sensitive.
Yeah, of course. But JSON is more than case sensitive.
Yeah, I agree. So now let us just create a new incident record here. If you are doing something, you will get the mistakes. If you are not doing something, you will never get a mistake. So which one is better? Doing something or doing not something is better? Tell me, guys. Doing something is better or doing nothing is better? So this time it has created a record. Okay. So now let me just take this record number here. And here I go to the incident list. So it has created a record here. So in this incident record, correlation ID is also there. So this is actually our incident SysID number. Our incident SysID number we have placed here. Where is this? So this is the one. Our incident number we have placed here. So now this system has an idea that which record has to be updated in the external system, right? Okay. Now what I do here in my system, either I will create REST message, sorry, either I will create import set API or script REST API. Here my system has to receive the data, right? If my system has to receive the data, do I allow them to directly enter the data into the target tables? No, right? So either I will use import set API or import set API or script REST API. As we are already using script REST API, I am going to create a import set API here. Okay. So in my system, I am going to create import set API. To create an import set API, we have to first create staging table. Okay. So here, while creating the staging table, right? While creating the staging table, right? I did not create any fields. I did not create any fields. Okay. Invalid insert. Why is it showing invalid insert here? So there is already a staging table name called create incident. Then we have to again change the label as okay. So contact type is not actually mapped. So what we can do is we can actually use mapping assist. Okay. Okay. So here in the transfer map, we have to keep coalesce. We have to keep transfer map on coalesce. Okay. So we have to map the correlation ID field. Okay. We have to map the correlation ID field with target system ID. Okay. So whatever the system ID that they are sending, if that system ID is there in the system, that will be updated. The system ID is not there in the existing system, record will be created. Okay. So then what we are doing here, as we all know, if source dot u underscore correlation ID equal to empty, okay. Okay. Done. So now I am going to use this import set API in the external system. External system is sending the request, right? I'll create a REST message in the external system in this case. Are you guys following me? Everyone? Is it
Yes.
like a Chinese language for you?
Yes, yes.
Hmm? So is it like Chinese language for you or? Okay. Because why am I telling you is that when I was learning first, when I was trying to understand this bidirectional, it was not that easy. If you guys are able to understand it means you have a superpower. So I'm just using REST API Explorer. So this is actually an import set API, right? So Naresh has that superpower.
No, right?
Okay. So staging table name is actually test incident, right? Okay. Caller, short description, correlation ID. Hmm, okay, right. I'm just creating a record in the this is the incident record that is actually created in the external system. So in the incident table. The incident table only it has created record. Okay. So now what I have to do? I have to take this URL, import set API URL. So let me just take a notepad here. I'm just breaking this one. Okay. So this is actually a request body. Okay. I have to create a user account, right? Okay. So we have to grant roles here. This is a capital letter, a small letter. And I'm taking now here in this system, I'm creating a REST message. Okay. Okay, we created a REST message. So we'll create a HTTP method here. Okay. So here, right, for this integration user, we have to grant roles. We did not grant role, I believe. So REST services role, import set role, transform map roles we have to give. So in the interviews, this question will be asked. So we have to provide a REST service related integration role. Import a transformer. Sorry. It was scripting. You did not provide any role. You have admin role, right? So you must grant role. So it should not allow you. We'll check that. We should also provide the table related roles as well. Now what we will do, we'll go to the REST message here. Inside this REST message, we'll open the HTTP method and we will test it, whether it is able to reach my system or not. Let's click on test. If it is able to reach my system, it will give 200 status. So 201. That means it is able to reach my system. Okay. So now what we have to do here, we have to trigger this REST message from the business rule. So we have to create a business rule in the incident table. So we have already created a business rule, right? We'll copy paste that. Create incident will keep. Okay. So here, right, this is actually for, I think, scripted REST API, right? This logic is for scripted REST API, right? But we have to parse the response in a, we have to pass the response in a different format. I think it is also same. Okay. We don't have correlation display. We do have correlation display field available, out of box field. That is actually. So correlation ID is actually, we have to remove this one, U underscore. It is actually out of box field which we are using, right? So C, SD, D, CT. Okay. So we have to change the REST message name. For caller, we have given C, short description SD, description is D, contact type CT, state ST, sys MY ID, right? Okay. So in the REST message, here I'm actually giving dollar lower brackets C, dollar lower brackets SD, D, dollar lower brackets. So here, right, we are actually passing the sysID, right? Here we should be very clear. We should be very clear. Whatever the correlation ID that we are getting in the system, right? Okay. If this correlation ID, definitely there will be there, right? Then it will update the record. If there is no record, if there is no correlation ID, then it will create a record, right? So then we have to pass here as correlation ID. Okay, as well as we have to pass the sysID as well, right? We have to pass sysID as well, right? So when you are sending the request, you have to update the correlation ID there as well, right? you have to pass correlation ID you are passing here as this one, right? Okay. If this correlation ID is there in that system, it will be updated. If this correlation ID is not there in the system, it will create a record, which is fine. As well as we have to pass the current record SysID as well. That means in my system, I have to create a new field. Not new field. I have to create a new field in the staging table. Where is the test incident table? Record SysID with a correlation ID I will map. So there are two correlation IDs, right? This is the one which we are using. Okay. Done. So where is the rest message? Comma. So here you will get some confusion. Okay. So now we'll just have a quick test. So 200, it is able to reach the external system. First, what I do, I'll create a record in my system. Okay. I'll create a record in my system. Once I create a record here, that should create a record there. Okay. So caller I am selecting here as Abraham Lincoln. Network test 4. Test 4. Saved this one. It has created a record, right? So once it created a record, it has to, so it is form is freezed. Form is freezed because it went to infinite loop, I believe. It went to infinite loop. So why is it going infinite loop? Why is it going infinite loop, guys? So here, right, whenever you are triggering the integration here, that is creating record here, right? So once you create the record there, immediately that is triggering the business rule. We have to keep the condition here. So in this business rule, we have to keep the condition. So what condition we have to keep here? Created by is not that integration user. So as soon as I create a record here, so invalid caller. Okay, Abdul Salim is not there in the external system, right? There is a validation, right? So it has created a record here. Okay. So it has created a record in the external system. So we'll open the record in the external system. Where are the incident records? Okay. We have external system here. Now here I am actually updating this as test 6 here. Okay. So once I save this one, right? So what should happen? So did it create a record on the external system or what? So once I update this record, this particular record has to be updated in my system. So it did not actually give an update. Sorry. In the business rule, we did not give update. We have given update, right? Hmm? in this instance. Okay. So I did not actually create REST message for update, right? I did give only for create. Yeah, you're right. So we'll do one thing. From this external system, we will create one record that is creating there or not, that is updating, that is actually creating there or not. We'll test for today. Incident.do here. So once I create an incident record, right? It is creating an incident record or not, we'll have to identify. Okay. I'm just creating a record here. Once I create a record here, it has to create a record there in the external system, and it is not updating the correlation ID. Okay. It is not updating the correlation ID. So why is it not updating the correlation ID? We have to identify, because we are getting the response properly, which is fine. While updating this particular record, we have to do some modifications. So we'll see, this is the incident number that is created in the external system. We'll go here, we'll open that particular incident here. So incident has been created in my system. So incident has been created. Okay. So that incident number should be updated here. I think we'll take a look at this one. Result of 0. Okay. Okay. Now we will create a new incident record here. This time it has updated the correlation ID here. Okay. So this is a record that would have been created in the external system. So here in this external system, this correlation ID should be updated with that particular record number here. So that is also not happening here. So then what we will do, we'll go to the transform map. Okay. Here is the transform map. That record mapping, we had done mapping, right? Records is ID with that correlation ID. Hmm. Here we have to keep coil is true, right? We did not do that. So it is always creating the record. Okay, we forgot to keep the coil is there. Hmm? Now we will create one more record here. Okay. So the correlation ID is not updated. U underscore correlation ID. U underscore correlation ID. So we will first check whether we are receiving that in the staging table or not. Correlation ID also we are receiving. So it is coming as empty. Empty means it should create a record. So test 10. So for test 10, correlation ID is empty. So correlation ID, when you are creating empty, correlation ID will come as empty, right? Correlation ID will come as empty. Where is this record sys ID? So test 10, record sys ID it has, which is fine. Why is it not updating then? Source dot correlation ID. Is it an issue with the fields? Correlation ID target. So record is not there means it is creating the incident record, right? Hmm? It is creating the incident record means whenever the correlation ID is not there, it has to create the record there. Whenever the correlation ID is there, it has to update the record. So here when you are creating correlation ID is empty, right? This correlation ID is empty here. So when it is empty, it has to create a record here. This particular record sys ID has to be updated in their correlation ID. You guys are getting my point. So whenever you are creating a new record here, that means correlation ID is empty means there is no record in the external system. There is no record in the external system. What will happen? If there is no record, it will create a record there. Okay, that particular record sys you will hold it here. So this particular record sys you will hold it there in the correlation ID, right? This instance sys you will have to hold it in the external system correlation ID, and that particular record sys you will have to have it here in the correlation ID. So here, what is happening? We are able to get that. We are able to get that here. Okay, and then we are creating a record. So as soon as you create a record here, it will create a record there in the external system. That record number will be populated here, which is fine. So in this particular record, in this particular incident record, this record sys has to be stored. That is where we are actually getting problem. U underscore correlation ID. So we are getting caller, short description, description, everything. And why are we not getting this correlation ID? Where is the mistake happening? Okay. Sorry. Yeah, see, script is fine. Script is fine. There is no issue with the script. So I did not keep you in the staging table. Hmm? So I have kept you underscore, right? See, I have kept correlation ID, na? Spelling mistake is there or spelling mistake? There is no spelling mistake. Hmm? In business rule. In which business rule you are talking about? This one? Okay. So here we are actually passing as system ID. Okay. So that is actually in the REST message. So in the REST message, so here passing correlation ID, na? You underscore correlation ID. Same thing we are actually accessing there, right? Here we are passing as this one. So we are passing this one. You underscore correlation ID. So correlation ID we are actually keeping there. System ID. In the system ID, I'm passing correlation ID, right? It should be you underscore. No, it should not be you underscore, right? See, here in the system, this correlation ID field is not actually uh, custom one. It is actually an out of box one. It is an out of box one. See, we are receiving the request as well. You underscore correlation ID. This transform map, sysID, whatever the record that is coming in the system, that is there in the system means. Coalesce is not yet defined. Coalesce is there now. It has to create a record. Target table is incident table only. So we'll have to check the logs, transform map logs. So we have got the record SysID as well. Correlation ID we have got as empty. We have got as empty. Empty means it has to create a record. We are getting this particular record should be there in this external system. Test 11. A6. This particular record SysID, this record, both are same. That means, so we are actually able to send this request SysID to record SysID to this external system, but the somewhere we are actually facing issue with the transform map only. So as it is creating a record means, it is actually checking the coalesce as well. Okay. Mm. Hmm? Mhm. See here, what is happening is that there is a business rule. There is a business rule on my incident table, which is aborting the action. So only on while creation of the record, we are not actually getting that particular correlation ID. So while updating, we are actually getting that. Only on creation, we are actually not getting. So we will create one more record and then we will test it. So don't worry guys, bidirectional integrations will take some time. So usually in the organizations will take a lot of time to do this bidirectional integration. But here we are actually discussing in less time, right? Just 13. Okay. So as soon as I create a record here, it will actually create a record there in the system. Okay. So this is the number that is actually created there. Only on creation, it is actually not updating here. Only on creation. Okay. So if you update this particular record somewhere, test 14, it is updating the record and it is updating this correlation ID as well. But in the insertion, it is not updating the record. That is actually the problem. See this particular record, FUD, AFUD, AFUD. Okay. So I think we have to pass some, we have to check why exactly it is not updating this particular records inside in the external system. Okay. So there is a lot of confusion, right, for you? Hmm? You got, I think this last one made a lot of mistakes. Mm, you underscore records is ID. Okay. Yes. So because there are some business rule on my table which are actually impacting that. Okay. So what I have done in the transform map, I have actually removed this run business rules. Okay. So now if I update this particular record here, as test 16, so it will actually update the record in the external system, right? So obviously it will actually update the record in the external system. Okay. So if I update it here, 17, so it will update the same record in the system as 17. Okay. So here I am actually updating here as Uday Gadiparthi. The same short description will be updated here in the system. Okay. If you refresh this one, short description is updated here or not? Okay. So now here try to understand one thing. I am just creating an incident record here in the system. As soon as I create a record here in the system, it will create a record in the external system. That record number will be populated here. Test 18. Okay. Okay. As soon as I create a record here, it will create a record in the external system. So caller invalid. I think we are almost there. But however, I have to make you guys more clear on this one. So there is a lot of confusion that got created. I will avoid that. Okay. So I have created an incident record here. So once a record is created in my system, it will actually create a record in the external system, right? Okay. This is the incident record that is actually created in the system. So if I open this incident record here, so this incident record has this correlation ID, right? So if I update here as 20, the record will be updated there. Okay. So if I create a record here, if this record is not there in the external system, means it is creating a new record. That record number we are actually populating here. When I update this record here, that is updating there. So when I update that particular record in the external system, that is updating here or not. You guys are able to understand. So now here I am going to create a new record here. Here I am going to create a new record here. Test 21. So as this correlation ID is empty, that means there is no record in the external system. Then what it does, it will create a new record. It has created a new record, which is fine. So that means this is a record that is created in the external system. Okay. As soon as the record is created, the correlation ID is updated here, right? So what I am doing here, I am actually updating the short description as test 223. So when I update this particular record here, is it getting updated there or not? Okay. So let us say when I create a record here, it is creating the record there in the system. When I update that particular record, that is actually updating here, right? So both way communications are happening or not. So even though we are able to achieve it, but I have to make you guys even more clear on this one, what I have done, because there was a lot of confusion that got created because of this transform map. So that was only because of the run business rules checkbox checked. That was the only reason. See, simple logic, guys. Whenever I am sending the request, right, I am actually sending this particular record ID, record sysID to external system. This particular record, external system ID, I am actually storing here. So when the external system has this correlation ID, that means there is already a record in the system, right? So when they update that they have to update this particular record. When the correlation ID is not there in the external system, they have to create the record in the system, right? So that is how I have made the logics. It seems like everything has happened, but you did not understand. Is that right? Naresh? You already left, huh?
Uday, I'm there.
Naresh?
Yeah, I'm there, Uday.
You are able to understand or not?
Yeah. But due to some lack of information is there, I'll go through that. Okay.